Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Joint Judicial Retention Committee to order. It is 4:35 on March 11th, and the committee are all present here. Present as well is Attorney Bob Paolini, Judge Brian Grierson, Terry Corsones, and Judge Hoyt, as well as Magistrate Lorman, who we have asked to come back to further our discussion with him from our initial interview with him. Let's see, and also present are Peggy Delaney, our committee assistant, and Eric Fitzpatrick, our legislative counsel. So I think we will start right off, and I know some folks have some questions for you, Judge Lorman, and we'll start. How about with Senator Benning, who is on my screen sitting to my right?
Here we go. Magistrate Lorman, I have probably 10 years I've been on this committee. I've seen ups and downs of various judicial officers, and you're the first one I've come across where I've seen what I would consider to be an upside down picture of what we normally look at if somebody is registered with any kind of a hurdle in front of them. And I was looking at your survey results, recognizing you're fairly new to the process. You seem like a perfectly nice guy, and I'm looking at your attorney results. I didn't, for some flack, but it wasn't the kind of flack that would have caused me to leap up and say, hey, wait a minute. The most pressing concern I had was you were dead split even on whether you should be reappointed with your staff members. Your staff members, in fairness, are a very finite group of people. If my recollection is correct, I don't have that on the screen, but I believe it was 10 responses that were had. So that means 5 people were for you, 5 people were against you. And as a result of that, I came away thinking it's a pretty, it's a serious enough problem, but it's limited in scope. And how to deal with that scoped out problem seemed to me to be pretty easy. And when I was making suggestions about having what I normally consider to be a bench bar conference, but in this case would be a bench staff conference, I didn't know whether such a thing was possible. My hope, quite frankly, was that you would come back here today to say, I've met with all 10 people and had an open door conversation to let them know I recognize that there are some people who are concerned. I don't want to have those concerns. I want to have an ability in my working environment to let people feel free to talk to me about whatever concerns they have. And that would go a long way with me. I saw your plan. The plan sort of takes care of that, except that, as I recall it, it was on a 3-month schedule for people to be having that kind of an open door process. And so I'll begin the conversation tonight by asking first, have you actually had any conversations thus far with folks? Is that still in the planning stages? And is that actually necessary to have a 3-month schedule? It seems like more work for you to do that, but having an open door policy in my eyes was a better way of presenting yourself, and the other committee members may disagree with me. But I feel for your predicament. I'm kind of curious to know with that question, what, if any, steps have been taken, or are we still looking at the plan as opposed to anything being done so far?
Well, thank you very much for that question, Senator. The answer is that no, I have not had any direct meetings with any of the court staff. I did understand and appreciate your suggestion from the last meeting. And did discuss that with Judge Grierson, who has been active in sort of helping me to propose the plan. And the reason I've not met directly with the staff is really out of concern for the staff. It raises sort of a whole host of issues about whether or not it's appropriate for me to talk to them directly about it, whether it might make them feel as if they're, I'm trying to ferret out who said what, which I'm certainly not. Certainly don't want to make them feel as though there might be any retaliation against them for anything they might have said. And so I think those were some of the concerns that I had initially, and that were, I think, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think were shared by Judge Grierson among others. And so I think in an effort to try to accomplish that best without risking making the staff folks feel uncomfortable, the plan was to have those folks be able to meet with the court operations managers who are their direct supervisors, and then to have the court operations managers meet with me on a monthly basis so that we can try to accomplish the same goal without really making the staff feel uncomfortable or running afoul of any other legitimate concerns that there might be.
Okay. I realize this is not just a learning experience for you, but even for me after 10 years. I didn't know what labor issues might be an obstacle in the way of accomplishing that. But I'm glad to see that's at least a component of your plan.
It is. And I think that, I'm certainly no expert on those labor issues either. So I don't claim to be, but I know that, Judge Grierson and I considered that issue. And I think that our proposal is a reasonable way to address it and try to achieve the goals that you raised in a way that sort of protects everyone. And so that's why I think we've settled on the plan that we have. And I would agree with you, your opening comments that it sounded like you were somewhat surprised to see the results from the staff. I can tell you that I was surprised as well. So I certainly understand. And I would go farther than to say surprised. I would add disappointed, because certainly, it was obviously not my goal to have those results, and nor did I expect them. But that's why this process is so important. I mean, without it, I might not have ever heard about this.
Yeah,
I think some staff reasonably feel trepidatious about approaching a judicial officer to try to express concerns, and who can blame them? I mean, so I might not have learned otherwise. So I'm grateful for this process.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is that it, Senator Benning?
Yep.
So I may have jumped the gun a bit by turning the meeting over to you, Senator Benning, but I wanted to call to the attention of the committee the proposal that we received from Magistrate Lawman, and hope everyone received a copy of it. It is his proposal of a remediation plan that was spoken about in conjunction with or along with Judge Grierson and Judge Hoyt. So has everyone received this email, this copy? Okay, yes. Very good. All right, and thanks for submitting this, Judge. This is a good piece. Now, just one question for Judge Grierson. Is there another plan that's coming from your end, or is this the plan that was devised between you and Judge Lawman? I'm a little confused.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Troiano. For the record, Brian Grierson, Chief Superior Judge. This plan was worked out with Magistrate Lorman and Bob Paolini, of course, representing him. And so this is a plan that is being presented by Magistrate Lorman, but it's certainly with input from me. And if you will indulge me with the question by Senator Benning, my initial thought, and as was Magistrate Lorman's after the first meeting, was let's reach out to the staff. But before doing that, upon reflection, I thought I would talk with Terry Scott, who's the Chief of Trial Court Operations, and explain to her what the nature of the problem was. I shared the survey results with her so that she would understand what the concerns were. And I asked her about the possibility of meeting with staff or setting up some kind of arrangement, or maybe even having a facilitator, anything to try to make the connection. And so she first reached out to the court operations managers in each of the counties where Magistrate Lorman works. And then I met with the four of them to discuss this. And collectively, they thought the approach that's presented in this program would be better. They were concerned also about the staff feeling very awkward in meeting one-on-one with Magistrate Lorman. So that's how we arrived at that point. We did give consideration to Senator Benning's idea of meeting directly with the staff, but thought this would be a better approach. And but it is, I'm part and parcel of the plan and worked with Magistrate Lorman and Bob Paolini on this.
Judge Grierson, if I could just jump in here, Chip.
Yes.
I want to make clear, I did not anticipate, nor would I seek to have a one-on-one meeting between Magistrate Lorman and staff. I think that would be very uncomfortable for anybody. My idea was simply to open the door and invite everybody in at the same time and have a general roundtable conversation.
Well, no, I'm sorry, and maybe I misstated. I wasn't thinking of it one-on-one, but more of a group. But it was just the idea of him meeting directly with staff, all 10, that it still didn't, the court operations managers, I will have to say collectively, were concerned about how difficult that would be for staff. And so that's how we arrived at the proposal that is before the committee.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Judge.
Yep.
So given the presentation that everyone received, this remediation plan, I would suspect that some or most of the questions would surround this plan. So we would go to Representative Shaw. Do you have any questions or discussion that you would like to discuss with Judge Lorman at this time?
Thank you, Chair Triana. I may have more of a statement than a question for Magistrate Lorman. I'm reading through, and I have read through his statement of supporting statement for his reappointment to the bench. And I must say, Magistrate Lorman, that in the last page, you say, I truly do love this job. I sometimes still can't believe that I get to do it. And Magistrate, that was my true feeling when I walked through the doors of the State House 12 years ago, that and I still believe the same thing today, that I do love this job, and I still can't believe I get to do it. But the big but is I have spent the necessary time to understand the legislative process and understand how the system works. And I just want to say, Magistrate, that should this committee decide to retain you, that you have a golden opportunity, if they retain you, to drive and steer your career in the state of Vermont anyway. And I know you have some issues, the isolation that you talked about, the stress that you talked about, and I hope that those are manageable for you should you receive reappointment. I think your remediation plan is a strong plan if you follow through with. And if you're reappointed, this committee will open a door from you. And if you don't step through it and become a better magistrate, it'll be on you. And that's my comment to you, Magistrate Lorman.
Thank you, Representative Shaw. I understand and appreciate those comments. Obviously, I had hoped to be here with better survey results and a better record to present to you. And I can tell you that, if I'm given the opportunity to, I will do everything in my power to correct the issues that have been raised. And I hope that, if I'm here next time, if there's a next time, that I'll be able to present a better record for you folks to review. So I do understand and appreciate those comments. Thank you.
And thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Shaw. So at this time, we would move to right below me on my screen is Senator McCormick.
Thank you. I've always been uncomfortable with the entire retention process. because it has to do with judges and the judiciary, and yet it seems to me in many ways deviates from norms of judicial proceedings, such as the fact that one does not get to face his accusers and to be informed of the charges against you. We know that many of the people on the court staff are unhappy with you, but I'm not clear on exactly, I know how they feel. I'm not clear on what exactly it is you've done. And we are in a time where we're told to trust our feelings, and there's a lot about feelings. And it seems to me it's sort of unfair to hold one person responsible for how another person feels, except to the extent that the person has done something to cause those feelings. I think we are responsible for what we do. And I think how people feel about what you do can be an indication. So unfortunately, when I look at your plan, remediation plan, there are various steps you're going to take, but I'm not clear yet as to what this plan is supposed to address. And you refer to anything I might do to cause them to feel this way or that. What do you actually think you have done wrong? What behaviors of yours do you want to change?
Well, thank you, Senator McCormick. That's an excellent question. And I've been sort of round and round on that. I got these survey results about a month ago now. As you can imagine, I've given them a lot of thought. I've done a lot of soul searching about it. And, I've concluded that based on the results that I've seen from some of them, that I've let the staff down in the sense that they feel as though I either am not interested in being there, or that I'm doing things in the courtroom that are difficult on them. And so, as I mentioned before, I wasn't aware of that. And so I'm hoping that through these meetings with the court operations managers, that I can find out more specifically about what particular behaviors have caused those concerns. I can tell you for my part that part of why I was so taken aback by the responses was that when I go to work every day, my interactions with the staff do not line up with the comments that I received. So, relations with the staff have been, I thought, excellent. And so I just hadn't been prepared, I guess, for what was included in those surveys. So it's difficult for me, as you said, without being able to know who's saying what and why, or being able to ask of them why, to identify what specifically I've done wrong. It seems as though certain things I've done in terms of running my courtroom have either been, not appreciated or have been inconvenient on the staff, and those are things that I just wasn't aware of. And I can also tell you that I have tried my best whenever I did take a certain action that I wasn't sure how it might impact the staff. I've tried my best to reach out to them and say to them, and I've said this before, I'm not exactly sure, when I do this, I'm not exactly sure what it means for you folks when you have to process it or handle it. And so I've asked before and encouraged them to let me know if it's creating problems for them that I'm unaware of. I haven't, no one's taken me up on that yet. So it's been difficult for me to really ascertain specifically what it is that I've done. All I can do is sort of infer from the comments that I have and hope that in these meetings with the court operations managers that things will be brought to light and I can address them, more surgically.
Okay, it is. I mean, I think it's difficult for you to address accusations that you're not entirely sure what they are. I think you do need to find out. Okay.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I
Yeah.
hope to.
Because I have said, I think it's important that we not, I really feel very strongly, people are responsible for what they do, not for how other people feel. Except to the extent that you're doing something where it clearly caused those things. If you behave in a threatening manner and someone feels threatened, well, then you're responsible for how you behave. And I think it is important that you find out.
I agree, Senator, and you know, I've learned, if there's one thing I've learned from this process, is that I'm not sure of anything, but I do feel comfortable in telling you that I've certainly never behaved in a threatening manner towards anyone, and so I hope that would
Or as
never.
far as you know.
As far as I know, I'm not sure how they feel about it, but from my perspective, I have not, and certainly would not ever do that. But you're right. The bottom line is that I need to find out why, and then until I do, I can't really set about addressing it. So
Well,
hopefully these
the
meetings
big thing in
allow that.
particular, because you're in a position of authority.
Right.
And that makes you almost by definition a threatening figure. And
Okay.
you do have to be sensitive to that.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McCormick. I think we would move to Representative Colburn. Would you like to discuss this plan and ask Judge some questions?
Yeah, thank you. I did take a look at your plan and read it through a few times, and I mean it seems very thorough in all of the steps that you're planning to take. I do agree with some of Senator McCormick's points about just, that they're really digging to try to understand more about where that's coming from, because in hearing you today and in the last time we were able to speak with you, it does seem like there's a disconnect happening. And my question is a little bit less about the plan, but more maybe relates to a little bit to the disconnect, or just what you're doing in the moment. So I'm wondering, as you've had a little more time to sit with survey results and the comments, and I think folks have emphasized that where the area of greatest concern is with the staff, but I think some of the comments that you got from attorneys were somewhat consistent with what staff were saying in terms of really the issues of maybe time management, I would say, or just continuation of cases, or sort of, and you've explained some of this to us, I think, when we met with you the first time, like what your experience was and why.
Sure.
People might have been perceiving that there was a delay for you to get to the bench, but I'm wondering, just now that you've had some time to sit with all these comments, like, is there anything in them that's sort of resonating with you and you're starting to make adjustments already, and just how you're doing things day to day in court? If there's any of that, as you've sat with it a little more, are you already making some changes just day to day based on some of what you learned?
Yes, Representative Colburn. So I mentioned that I received those comments on a Friday afternoon, and I read them, and I noticed some of the themes in there about continuing hearings or starting hearings late, seeming to be disinterested. I think that part of, and I mentioned in my statement last time, I think part of that was because there were times when I was not going on the record in hearings when it wasn't strictly necessary to do that, on the theory that it would save the court time and it would save the staff time for not having to be in the hearing and recording the hearing and being away from their work. And so strictly speaking, I think it was a time-saving measure, and that was my intention. But in reviewing it, I think it gave the impression that I just didn't want to do it, or I didn't want to be on the record, or I was trying to get out of doing it somehow. I take full responsibility for creating that impression. It wasn't my intention, but yes, so I ceased that practice on the next business day. So immediately I changed that, and I've been Since then, going on the record in every single hearing, regardless if it's a continuance or if it's a stipulation or if it's an agreement of some sort, or if no one shows up, so that's an example of something I changed right away, because I think while some of the comments can be inscrutable when you don't know from who, by who they're made, or to what they refer, that was one I could identify right off the bat. So I'm not going to do that anymore. I mean, that's the end of that. So from now on, we'll be doing everything on the record. So to the extent that I can identify more things like that, I'm certainly going to take those actions right away. As to the more difficult to ascertain comments, my hope is not only to address those through the meetings with the court operations managers that we already discussed, but also through another part of the plan, which is to have a retired magistrate come and observe my hearings, observe what I'm doing, in court, out of court, and sort of hopefully be able to help identify some of those things by a person who's more experienced than I am, who can then explain them to me, pass that along to me, make suggestions to me, as well as giving that information to Judge Grierson. So, that I think is the plan, to try to get to the bottom of and also address some of the concerns that were raised. Did that answer your question?
It did, yeah.
Okay.
Anything further, Representative Colburn?
I think that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. So Senator Hardy, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Judge Lorman, for being with us here again today. I guess I would just a couple comments based on what some of my colleagues have said, and then I have a question for you. But I would reiterate what Representative Shaw said, and I have very, very similar feelings. And I hope that you take, if we are to recommend retaining you and the legislature votes to retain you, that you take this as an opportunity to be a better magistrate, and that you come back to us in 6 years with glowing remarks. And so it's a good opportunity. You're a new magistrate. You have a whole career ahead of you, and service to the state. So I completely agree with Representative Shaw. And I also, in terms of the question that Senator McCormick asked you, I actually disagree with him a little bit. I do think it's really important, and even though we can't always control what other people feel, it's really important that we're aware and that we are sensitive to what other people feel in our interpersonal relationships. Even if we can't really control other people's feelings, we can control our own actions and how they make other people feel. And I think that that's sort of the task ahead of you, even though you have very, maybe inscrutable, you're not sure exactly what you're doing that's making people feel the way they're doing, but you have enough information. And I think it's really important to understand that people's feelings are, and I think you do, I'm not suggesting you don't, but I just want to say it's really important that staff feel good about working with you if there's to be an effective court system. And I just this afternoon was reading about a breakdown in staff and judge communications, apparently, that's happening in our state right now. So that when that happens, justice can't be served and people can't get their cases finalized, and that's not okay. So I guess in looking through your plan, I was the one that sort of very definitively asked you to come back with a plan. I knew that everyone else sort of wanted that too, but I'm wondering if you could explain the plan and what you think each part of it will get you, and how it will address some of the problems. Because one thing, you mention your relationship with Magistrate Hoyt, who I see is actually with us, as she's supposed to be your mentor. And then the sort of the courses you're going to take, So anyway, I just wondered if you could address the components of the plan and what you think you'll get out of each component. And you don't have to be extremely in-depth about it, but
Okay.
I just like in your own words.
Sure. So the first thing that we discussed, which we've already sort of touched upon, is the meetings with the court operations managers to try to address the concerns of the staff. Obviously, that's in lieu of direct meetings with the staff for the reasons that we've already discussed. And so the hope there is to try to get from the staff, try to flesh out a little bit more what the concerns are and what the reasons for them are, in a way that makes them feel comfortable and allows me to still address it. The second part of the plan you mentioned was taking classes at the Judicial College. And so that is an institution where our judge, Tom Zone, does a lot of teaching and a lot of instructing, so he's heavily involved. He has looked into a program for me to attend that has already been created. It's expected to be called Staff Relations. And so we're hopeful that that is going to provide some helpful suggestions and instruction in terms of how better to deal with the staff. If that doesn't come to pass, or if that's turns out not to be a appropriate class, then the Judicial Education Committee, on which both Magistrate Hoyt and Judge Grierson sit, have expressed that they'd be willing to create one to be attended here at home. And so obviously the goal there would be, to learn how better to address and assuage some of the problems and concerns that have been issued by the court staff. The next component of the plan that I talked about earlier was to have a retired magistrate come back and observe my proceedings, observe my hearings. Magistrate Harlow has been gracious enough to, my understanding has been gracious enough to agree to do that. She's very experienced. She's someone that I obviously respect and certainly can learn from. So, her goal is to observe my proceedings, make suggestions, observations, communicate those things to me and also to Judge Grierson, and perhaps even the presiding judges of the counties that I'm sitting in, and that, through that process, I can learn what issues there might be and how best to address them. The last part of the plan is one that you also mentioned, which is with Magistrate Hoyt. She is my mentor. She has been since the beginning. She kindly agreed to do that. And believe me, she could probably tell you I've taken full advantage of that when I needed to, and she's been great. So, the hope is that she would be able to help me specifically address the issue of time management that I think you will see did come up in my survey results. And so, with the goal being to learn how better to use the time that I have available to me during the day, to get the decisions written that need to be written and the things done that need to be done, and to hopefully help me do it in a way that's more sustainable, so it doesn't always have to be evenings or weekends, but to also really take advantage of and squeeze every little bit that I can out of the time that's available to me during the work week. So those are the major components of the plan, and I think what they're designed to try to help me do.
Okay, that's really helpful to hear it directly from you. And based on my meeting and opinion of Judge or Magistrate Hoyt, sounds like you have a great mentor. So, and I guess what I would encourage you, if you are retained, to take full advantage of the 3-year review process that the VBA is doing, and then share those results with Magistrate Hoyt or Judge Grierson or whomever, and discuss them so that you really can learn from that too as part of your plan, so that in 6 years you'll come back, you won't have surprises, and you'll be fully prepared as a much more experienced judge at that point. So I appreciate your humility. I know this is a really awkward thing. Even in the best of times, it's even more awkward on Zoom, I can tell you. So thank you for just laying it out for us very clearly. I appreciate that. And I do hope we can work things out for you.
Thank you, Senator Hardy. I appreciate that very much. I think as I said last night, although I wasn't really prepared, but that we were talking about that sort of midway point review system. I can promise you I will be taking full advantage of that. I wish that I had that available to me at 1.5 years, because I think that I might have been able to sort of discover and at least get started on trying to address some of these issues before I needed to do it before the committee. So I can assure you that I see the utility of that proposal, and I will be taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Sure you will. One thing we heard from a judge last time, I can't remember who it was. They were talking about their long commute home because judges often have to serve far from where they live. And they said that they used that time to review their day and think about what they did well and what they didn't do well. So that might be another way to use your time well, is to sort of review your day at the end of the day. If you have that commute or walk home, if you're in Rutland, I don't know where you live, but anyway, thank you for being here tonight and for your response.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hardy, and Representative excuse me. Still have problems with calling you not.
So, Judge Lorman, I'll be, perfectly honest with you. I want to be frank. I am really feeling my way through this process. As this is my first year on this committee. So, I'm not certain that I'm going to end this with a question, but I just wanted to share my thoughts and some of my concerns with you and give you a chance to reply. So, certainly I've looked at the plan, the proposed plan. I've looked at what you've said, and then that looks good to me. That sounds good to me. My concern it's twofold. First off, very clearly, I'll just say this, very clearly you're on the ropes. And if you are retained, there's got to be some sense of elation, some sense of vindication that I don't want to see lessen the need to actually make some changes. And while we can talk about midpoint and whatnot, I still am very cognizant of the fact that the next time of a real accounting is 6 years. Sorry about that. So I do have those concerns. And the other thing, though, and I'm trying to find the right words for this, is you're talking about a plan, and you're talking about improving relations with staff and whatnot. And what I would hope is an outcome of this process is that there's a certain level of introspection, because you could be doing something, you could be in a similar fashion to another judge, another court official, but how it's done is absolutely key to how another person might interpret it. So I do have concerns, and I'm not saying I'm not saying you can or should blow up your personality. I'm not saying you need to, in your position, be a confident individual. So I'm certainly not saying, scuttle down and start over. But I would hope that as you think about staff opinions, as you think about how we got to here, I do hope there's some level of introspection about, mindset and maybe how you carry yourself in your bearing that could make a significant difference in your relations with those you interact with in the court system. And that's something that there is no real way to measure. That's your heart and your soul. So, if you don't want to answer, I feel odd putting you on the spot in something like this, and I'll understand and I won't hold it against you. But I do want to say that I think that that might be the most important part of this process for you. And I do hope that is something that you are reflecting on. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Knott. I'll do my best to address both of those points. You used the word elation, and I guess I can tell you that if I'm retained, I'm not going to be coming out of this process feeling elation. I can guarantee you that. It would be gratitude above all. And secondly, in terms of introspection, I've already begun that process. As I mentioned before, there's been a good deal of soul searching already. There's been a little confusion, and I'm working through that. I'm hopeful that through the meetings with the comms and through the observation of Magistrate Harlow, I can sort of help get to some of those issues and address them. But look, I mean, I'm embarrassed at the comments that were made. And so I can tell you, I'm going to address it. I can promise you that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Representative Knott. Senator Ditka, the mic is yours.
Thank you. So, Judge Lorman, I do see you have some very good qualities that are fine to have in a judge. Your integrity, you had good ratings on integrity, which is certainly very important for your position. You also had knowledge of the legal procedures was good. And you also had the references that came in that spoke to your knowledge in child support issues as well. I mean, I know two of those attorneys and have respect for them. And I think that they, their word is good. I think they would have been willing to say something if they needed to. So I think that the other thing that was very positive was that people felt you inspired respect. And that was attorneys saying that. You had a total of 9, either very good or excellent. So I think, you have many good qualities right now. And I think, the plan is good. I think it's not an easy one because as many judges have had this problem in the past of time management. And you mentioned you do so many cases in a day. And if you really don't have a grip on them right after the case, to go back to them in 2 weeks is a nightmare. And there are so many of the cases that you have. So I think with the help of, the people you're going to be working with, if there's a way to really focus on that, and then perhaps it wouldn't seem like you were, I wouldn't say short with the staff, but relying on them to help you might diminish if you're able to really get something done like right after each case or special kind of notes. Or judges have gone through it before, so I know there must be some tricks out there.
Right.
That because it really is very hard. And I can remember some cases some time ago where judges hadn't written a decision in a year. They really got totally out of control.
Yeah.
So I think, at this point in your career, that's really very, very important to get that underway and in control of it. And you are a long time on the road. I don't know if it would be wise or safe for you to maybe just be dictating some notes even as you're driving. I don't want to really suggest that, but it might work. It really might work. I think that, you're on the road a long time. So I think that I like the change that you're doing already with doing every case on the record. I think that will help too in terms of just had a major bang here, which I think was a major ice dam falling off my roof and hitting the house.
Oh, no.
Anyway, the wall is still here. So I think that, I think the other thing is the Odyssey system, which a lot of people are struggling with that thing. And I think if you can, if the court can do something to help you and other judges with that, it would be to everybody's benefit. So I appreciate you coming through all of this and providing the information that you did, and I wish you the best. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So I guess I would finish, I would like to finish with a comment as well, or a number of comments. Judge, you've been on the bench for 3 years, and I, somewhat like my colleague, Representative Shaw, have in the past, and in this case as well, likened an appointment to the bench to entering this chamber as a freshman legislator. And the learning curve is steep, very steep. You must work hard to overcome that. And it's not an easy task. And our first biennium, reviewing bills and drafting bills, and the whole process is just so immense. And again, watching my sister go through it as a new judge also reminds me of it. So after 3 years, I think you deserve some consideration for the amount of time that you've been on the bench, and given the massive undertaking it is to become a good justice, or a good judge. And you know, since I've served on this committee, truly believe that every judge that comes before us is very satisfied to have made that point in their career, and that they certainly aspire to be the best judge that they can be. And I believe that's the case with you as well. So you must learn and you must lead. You are in charge at that courthouse, and you must lead everyone. And so when I thought of the phone call incident that was cited in the criticisms, and when you analyze that a little bit more, you know, if I was standing in the courtroom, I would make no assumptions that you were taking a personal phone call. In fact, I would probably assume different. I would probably assume that it was something to do with business, or something that was of an important nature. But it does speak to the notion that that criticism may have come as a result of lost communications between you and some staff members, possibly, that perceived this in a way that was recorded in this criticism. So I think, you know, like Senator Benning, myself, we were both in the courtroom a lot when Judge Zoney was first appointed to the bench. And then visiting him with him, I think was 2 years ago when he came in for his retention. And to see the accolades and the genuine satisfaction that came from all aspects of the court that he sat in was just really encouraging. I mean, the contrast was wonderful. So again, I think I believe that excuse me, the experience that you can gain, and the change in the changes that you are available to you to make right now are probably the most important part. I think observation in court will be of great value. You know, I think your plan is comprehensive, and your willingness to do it, and your initiative that you took to to do this. So I think court observation is very important, so that someone with knowledge is looking at the way you conduct yourself. I think the judge college will give you some additional insight to this. And you know, I think that I wish you the best, because I do think that this process has been somewhat enlightening to you in some ways, and in some ways discouraging to you. But I think overall, your acknowledgement and your willingness to become a better magistrate is what we are all on this committee relying on to take this further, and to serve your state of Vermont and the citizens of Vermont in a way that will make us all proud, including yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Troiano. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Okay, hearing nothing. So I think that the committee should have a discussion as to when we may want to vote. Peggy, do we have is that on the schedule now, or do we need to set that up?
Yes, it is. Let me check the date. Hold on. I think it's next Wednesday.
Okay, so anything further from anyone else here? Judge Grierson, Attorney Paolini, Terry, Christine, Judge Hoyt, I should say, sorry.
Not for me, Chair Troiano, but thank you for the opportunity. If other committee members have questions for me or about the plan, I'll be glad to share my thoughts.
Okay.
I would have nothing, Mr. Chairman or members of the committee. Thank you for tonight, for your questions, your considerations.
Okay, very good.
I have something I'd like to say.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to speak. I'm not familiar with a lot of remediation plans, but in reviewing Magistrate Lorman's plan, it seemed the first impression I had was that it was very robust, many facets to it. And I just want to say that I have every confidence that he will follow through and be successful. And I am going to be with him every step of the way to support him. So thank you.
Very good. We appreciate that, Judge Hoyt.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, I think the committee should meet briefly to discuss our vote and where we go from here. So thank you, everyone, for being here, and we would like to just meet with the committee for a short period of time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you
very much.
Do we stay online or no?
I don't believe we need to do this. What we need to do in executive session is just set up our time to vote and anything that and assignments of.
So we might do some, if there's a need, do some discussion in executive session.
Sure. Okay, that will work. Thank you, Senator.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we move into executive session to discuss personnel matters.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Senator McCormick, thank you. All in favor?